Hello, I'm Jeremy, and welcome to another episode of Jeremy U's Reviews, where mistreated movies get a second chance. Ever since YouTube recommended the film's trailer to me, I have been absolutely excited to watch Frankie Freako, a bizarre, crazy 80s homage comedy movie with puppet monsters directed by Steven Kostanski, the director of PG Psycho Goreman. Sign me up! And after watching it, holy cow, was this movie awesome! Let's start with the film's puppetry. The puppets in this movie are absolutely fantastic. The designs themselves are really cool, capturing the aesthetic of characters like the Garbage Pail Kids and the Ghoulies, but still feeling distinct enough to stand on their own as characters. My favorite design is the villain of the film, President Munch. His regular form is really cool, having a design that's menacing, humorous, and fitting with his character. And when he enters Super Freak mode, his transformation is both menacing and awesome. As for the movements, they're also pretty solid. Despite Frankie and the rest of the Freakos being cartoonish in their designs, their movements feel really natural. I never had a moment where I was like, these things are just inanimate puppets interacting with humans. They really felt like they were moving, talking, and interacting with the other characters. Overall, the puppetry in this movie is really well done. It's not Jim Henson level, but it's not meant to be. It's meant to capture the essence of crazy, chaotic 80s gremlins, and it succeeds at it in spades. As for the characters themselves, they're also great. Let's start with Connor Sweeney. Connor is basically the straight man to the crazy antics that go on throughout the movie. He's a very bland, stick-in-the-mud type person, which the film makes a couple of clever jokes about. Like how when Connor is watching an antique show and one of the people on the show says shit, Connor goes, "Oh, we're just allowing swear words on TV now," and how his idea of an exciting dinner is ordering pizza. And yet, despite this, the character himself never feels boring or obnoxious, as Connor's love for both his job and wife Christina makes him a very sympathetic character. And Connor Sweeney, yes, both the actor and character are named Connor, gives a fantastic performance, perfectly capturing the character's straight-laced demeanor and giving the character a ton of personality. I also like the arc he goes through with the Freakos. Connor starts out hating the Freakos due to them destroying the house, including his wife's statues, and tries to get rid of him. But as the film goes on, Connor warms up to the Freakos and ends up helping them save their planet. It's a very enjoyable and believable arc that really makes Connor a fully rounded and enjoyable character. Overall, Connor's just a really fun, well-written character. He's a perfect straight man to the wacky insanity that goes on in the film, and Connor Sweeney does a great job bringing the character to life. Great character all around. Now let's move on to the Freakos, starting with the film's titular Freako, Frankie. Frankie is a pretty solid character. Where Connor is a bland stick in the mud, Frankie is a pure party animal. And like Connor, Frankie executes his role perfectly. Frankie is a perfect encapsulation of the stereotypical rad aesthetic of the 1980s, not just in terms of looks, but in terms of attitude. However, it never gets to the point where the bit feels annoying or obnoxious. Frankie is just ridiculous enough to sell the bit, but stops short of it being too much. Frankie's rad, cool dude attitude is a perfect encapsulation of the film's wacky tone, showcasing the kind of crazy dated charm associated with the 1980s, and he works as a good foil for the more bland and serious Connor. On top of that, Frankie still manages to be a sympathetic character. While he is generally a crazy, rad 80s party animal, you can see why he begins to earn Connor's sympathy. Because while he is a wild and rambunctious character, he is still a good freako at the end of the day. He just likes to party, and that sometimes allows him to do unintentionally bad things. This sympathy allows Frankie to be a more enjoyable presence, as opposed to an a-hole we're just supposed to like because he's the title character. A perfectly balanced character that's a ton of fun. Overall, Frankie Freako, the character, is really solid. He's a crazy and fun party animal that still manages to have enough sympathy for him to be likable. Not a ton to say, but Still a really solid character, nonetheless. Oh, and Mike from Red Letter Media has a small cameo as the voice of a narrator for a Freako educational tutorial. So yeah, that's pretty neat. Little trivia for anyone in my audience who's a fan of Red Letter Media. As for Frankie's friends, Boink, Bardo, and Dottie Dunko, they're also really fun. Boink is the gadgets expert and has a little running gag where all he says is shabadoo or some variation of the word, which I can understand getting old for some people, but I thought it was pretty cute. And Dottie is a gunslinging cowgirl who also has some solidly funny moments. Like Frankie, both Dottie and Boink aren't terribly complex characters, but they're still a ton of fun and have great interactions with Frankie, Connor, and the other characters. Overall, Frankie, Dottie, and Boink are really fun and enjoyable characters. While they're not super complex and dynamic characters, they're still really entertaining and likable, having a ton of fun and mischief without going too far. And the puppetry on them is absolutely fantastic. Great anchors for a great movie. Moving on to Connor's boss, Mr. Buechler, and he is an absolute trap. Buechler is an interesting character because while he is a good boss in the sense that he genuinely cares about Connor and his well-being, he's kind of crazy. There's a running gag where Buechler tries to implicate Connor in some kind of crime. The movie's never really specific on this, by getting Connor to shred documents in front of a security camera. And Connor treats it as some ordinary part of his job, which is really funny. But despite that, Buechler does care about Connor and tries helping him with the Freakos, which gives Connor and Buechler an interesting relationship and allows him to be more than just a stereotypical boss character. He's not wholly good or wholly evil. He's pretty much the definition of chaotic neutral, and that makes him really interesting. Buechler isn't like a super major character, but his chaotic neutral nature, as well as a great performance from Adam Brooks, allows the character to be more memorable and unique and make a great movie even better. Overall, Mr. Buechler is not an incredibly complex or detailed character, but he's still an entertaining addition that has some great moments, an interesting dynamic with our main character, and makes a great movie even better. As for Connor's girlfriend, Christina, she's fine. Not a ton to say. She's a decent character. Christy Wordsworth is solid in the role. She has good chemistry with Connor, and she has some decent moments and plays a solid role in the movie. Again, not that much to say, but I mean, given how major she is in plot, I felt she was worth mentioning. Finally, we have the villain, President Munch. Munch is the exact type of villain you would expect in a movie like this. Irredeemably evil, over the top, and the perfect balance of menacing and silly. And as mentioned earlier, his design is awesome. It's a really unique design that echoes the campy tone of the film, while also being creative in its own right, and being just the right amount of menacing. He also has a crush on Connor, which does kind of play into the film, as Connor uses himself as bait for President Munch, but otherwise is just kind of played as an awkward joke. Overall, President Munch is a perfect villain for this type of movie. He's a perfect blend of menacing, humorous, crazy, and fun, being both an enjoyable villain and character. Great villain all around. Moving on to the humor, and it's very funny. The comedy in Frankie Freako does a good job of being just self-aware enough to get some good laughs, but not to the point where it feels like it's obnoxiously winking to the camera. There are some clever jokes and absurdist humor, such as the aforementioned running joke with Mr. Buechler wanting Frank to shred the documents, but they're given the right amount of irony. The thing about making an intentionally bad absurdist movie is that you need to be completely in on the joke. A good comparison would be Birdemic 2. Where the first Birdemic movie was an unintentionally hilarious masterpiece, Birdemic 2 continually winks at the camera and tries so hard to replicate the unintentionally comedic moments of the original film. It's so self-aware that it ruins the joke. But Frankie Freako, while clearly aware of how weird it is, never advertises that it's in on the joke. The weird moments in the movie are treated as normal, allowing for the irony to resonate better and for the jokes to hit harder. Not to mention how the script has some genuinely clever writing moments. There are great lines, solid banter between the characters, and absurd moments that add to the overall charm of the movie. You could definitely see the influences Steven Kostanski took from Psycho Goreman, as like that film, Frankie Freako absolutely succeeds at being an absurdist, intentionally campy schlockfest. Great humor for a great movie. Finally, let's discuss the film's overall aesthetic. Similar to Psycho Goreman and Dude Bro Party Massacre 3, Franky Freako has a 1980s aesthetic. Everything has a very retro sheen to it. There's a ton of old 80s objects, such as fax machines and old phones. And the title character is a reference to the old, actually existing hotline character, Franky Freako. It's a really cool aesthetic that manages to do a great job reflecting the 1980s while still feeling unique to the film and not hacky or played out. A perfect balance that adds to the overall charm of the film and pulls you in even further. Neat stuff. In conclusion, Franky Freako is an absolutely fantastic film from every angle. It's a really cool retro homage with a great design, interesting plot, cool characters, solid puppet work, and an overall charming and fun sense of humor. If you want an incredibly fun, campy pile of cheese, I cannot recommend Franky Freako enough. Easily one of the best movies of 2024, and a film that, combined with Psycho Goreman, easily cements Steven Kostanski as one of my new favorite directors. Super psyched to see what he does next. So yeah, great movie, check it out. And that's it. Let me know your thoughts on Franky Freako and stay tuned for more uploads. 2024 was an absolutely crazy year, and I hope to have a more consistent upload schedule in 2025, but, college is busy. We'll just have to see. Till then, this is Jeremy, ending our broadcast day. Adios.